boys and girls, story time again. Today I'm going to start a story and then finish it next time. And this story is all about a dear little bear, and his name is Paddington Bear. There's a film about him. Have you seen it? So, let's see the beginning of the story. Here are Mr. and Mrs. Brown, and they are in a station. Have you been to a station? It's where you go to catch a train or to meet a train when somebody's travelling a long way. So this station is called Paddington Station, and it's in London, where I live. Mr. and Mrs. Brown are waiting for their little girl, Judy, to arrive by train. And they're standing in the station waiting for Judy when Mr. Brown suddenly points to the left luggage office. Do you know what luggage is? Luggage means suitcases and boxes. Mr. Brown pointed to the left luggage office and said, "What's that over there? It looks like a bear," he said. "A bear?" replied Mrs. Brown. "On Paddington Station? Don't be silly, Henry. There can't be." Can you see the pigeons on the ground in front of Mr. and Mrs. Brown? There are lots of pigeons in various places in these pictures. So see if you can find the pigeon in the pictures. But Mr. Brown was right. The bear was sitting on an old leather suitcase marked "Wanted on Voyage." That means that this suitcase is necessary when the bear is on the journey. And as they drew near, the bear stood up and politely raised his hat. "Good afternoon," it said. "May I help you?" "It's very good of you," said Mr. Brown, "but as a matter of fact, we were wondering if we could help you." "You're a very small bear," said Mrs. Brown. "Where are you from?" The bear looked around carefully before replying, "Darkest Peru." Now, Peru is a country in South America. "I'm not really supposed to be here at all. I'm a stowaway." A stowaway is somebody who travels without a ticket and who hides on the journey. "You don't mean to say you've come all the way from South America on your own?" exclaimed Mrs. Brown. "Whatever did you do for food?" Unlocking his suitcase, the bear took out an almost empty glass jar. "I ate marmalade," it said. "Bears like marmalade." Mrs. Brown looked at the label around the bear's neck. It said, quite simply, "Please look after this bear. Thank you." "Oh, Henry," she cried, "we can't leave him here all by himself. There's no knowing what might happen to him. Can't he come home and stay with us?" "Stay with us?" repeated Mr. Brown nervously. He looked down at the bear. Would you like that?" he asked. "That is," he added, "if you have nothing else planned." "Oh, yes," replied the bear. "I would like that very much. I've nowhere to go, and everyone seems in such a hurry." "That settles it," said Mrs. Brown. "Now you must be thirsty after your journey. Mr. Brown can get you some tea while I go and meet Judy, our daughter." "But Mary," said Mr. Brown, we don't even know its name." Mrs. Brown thought for a moment. "I know," she said. "We'll call him Paddington, because this station is Paddington Station." Paddington! The bear tested it several times to make sure. Paddington! It sounds very important. Mr. Brown tried it out next. "Follow me, Paddington," he said. "I'll take you to the snack bar." In the picture of the station, can you see where the pigeon is? I can see it. It's on top of one of the notices which says Paddington Station. Can you see it? Mr. Brown took Paddington to the snack bar. Paddington had never seen so many snacks on a tray, and he didn't know which to try first. He was so hungry and thirsty, he climbed up on the table to get a better look. Mr. Brown turned away, pretending he had tea with a bear on Paddington Station every day of his life. Can you see the other people in the snack bar, all looking at Paddington sitting on the table? "Henry," said Mrs. Brown when she arrived with Judy. Can you see Judy with her little suitcase? "What are you doing to that poor bear?" Paddington jumped up to raise his hat, and in his haste he trod on a strawberry tart, skidded on the cream, and fell over backwards into his cup of tea. "I think we'd better go before anything else happens," said Mr. Brown. Judy took hold of Paddington's paw. "Come along," she said. "We'll take you home, and you can meet Mrs. Bird and my brother Jonathan." Can you see the poor waitress having to clear up all the mess behind Paddington? Oh dear. Mr. Brown led the way to a waiting taxi. "Number 32 Windsor Gardens, please," he said. He was giving his address. The driver stared at Paddington. "Bears cost extra," he growled. "Sticky bears is twice as much. And make sure none of it comes off on my seat. It was clean when I set out this morning." The taxi driver isn't very nice, is he? And there's that pigeon. Can you see it? And then we see Paddington Bear in the taxi, leaning out the window. The sun was shining as they drove out of the station, and there were cars and big red buses everywhere. Paddington waved to some people waiting at a bus stop, and several of them waved back. It was all very friendly. Can you see the man waving with his hand up, and the little boy and the little girl? And one man is looking out of the bus and is quite amused. And I can see the pigeon, can you? What's the number of the bus? Yes, it's number 23. Paddington tapped the taxi driver on his shoulder. "It isn't a bit like darkest Peru," he said. The man jumped at the sound of Paddington's voice. "Cream," he said bitterly. "Cream and jam all over me coat." He slid the little window behind him shut. "Oh dear, Henry," murmured Mrs. Brown. "I wonder if we're doing the right thing. Paddington Bear does seem to make a mess everywhere he goes, doesn't he?" Fortunately, before anyone had time to answer, they arrived at Windsor Gardens, and Judy helped Paddington onto the pavement. "Now you're going to meet Mrs. Bird," she said. "She looks after us. She's a bit strict at times, but she doesn't really mean it. I'm sure you'll like her." Paddington felt his knees begin to wobble. "I'm sure I shall if you say so," he replied. "The thing is, will she like me?" And there they are, about to go into the house, which has a green door and a round knocker. And who do you think that is looking out of the window? I think that's the little brother, and that must be Mrs. Bird. Do you think she looks nice or does she look strict? And can you see any pigeons in this picture? I can. And I can also see a little tortoise in the garden. See what other animals you can see in this picture. Can you see Paddington Bear with his little tiny suitcase? So they're about to go in the house, and next time I will read you the second half of the story. Bye-bye.